Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of all the warm and fuzzy positivity around this channel. Where's the edge? Where's the bite? Wouldn't you rather watch a video that makes you annoyed or angry? I know I would. So let's put together another list of 5 JRPGs that left me feeling disappointed, shall we? If I diss on your favorite game, please be sure to let me have it in the comments below. And if you don't mind, would you like and subscribe? You all are the best. Thank you so much. On to the disappointments. Folklore filled the early void of JRPGs on the PlayStation 3, and for that it should be commended. For everything else, however, I just don't have very much good to say about it. I'll try though. To be fair, the premise is interesting. You've got two people who couldn't be more different who find themselves in a small Irish village called Doolin. You know, I was thinking if Doolin had a school mascot, they should be the Banjos. Get it? I'm sorry. If this is the first of my videos you're watching, I'm not always like this. I promise. Anyway, these two people are Ellen, who is a college student with amnesia about her childhood, and Keats, who runs a sort of independent magazine about cryptids. They both get transported into the netherworld, where they use magical creatures called folk to attack and defend themselves. This brings in the first of my many complaints. This was early days for the PS3 when Sony was super pumped about their whole 6-axis controller thing, so gimmicky motion controls were super prevalent. Here, you have to shake the controller or yank it backwards on occasion to absorb enemies to use in battle. I think we've collectively come to agree that these sorts of gimmicks are bad and dumb, and that's why we don't really see them anymore. But unfortunately, this is just how Folklore is played. A product of its time. Beyond the gimmicky controls though, it's just honestly not that fun to play. Maybe I went into it with an expectation of more polish, something that wouldn't have been realistic for the time it was made. And I know not every developer is as good at making action games as Platinum, but this is pretty dang far from a Platinum quality game. The graphics were okay for the time, they feel a little muddy now. The gameplay feels stiff and all around just not great to play. But even if the gameplay were bad, I'd be willing to stick it out for a strong story. The problem here is that the way the story's told kind of bummed me out. Much of the plot unfolds in this sort of pseudo comic book style, unvoiced, which stands in stark contrast to the less frequent, fully animated and voiced cutscenes. I really hate it when games have multiple ways of conveying the plot. It gives different story scenes varying weights as far as their importance to the overall plot is concerned. Some people might like it when the developer tells you that this particular scene isn't as important as this other scene, but I don't. Maybe if I'd played this back when it came out, I'd have different feelings about it. But playing it for the first time a couple of years ago, it failed to impress me. I had maybe higher expectations than I should have, but regardless of whether the fault lies with the developers or with me, I ended up disappointed. Mimana Iyar Chronicles borrows a page from Gust's book of naming games with non-words that mean nothing. Our Tonelico Melody of Alemia, there's like one word in that title that's real. Okay, 2, if you count of, which I don't. So what on earth is a Mimana Iyar Chronicle anyway? Well, it's the chronicle of the land of Iyar, and the Mimana is... Actually, I don't think that was ever clear on what the Mimana is. Huh. If you played this game, did I just miss what the Mimana is? Let me know down below. Anyway, enough griping about the name. What's in a name, as Shakespeare once said? Mimana Iyar Chronicles is the brainchild of Kogado Studio, which employed some former Tales series developers. And I think you can see that series' inspiration in the gameplay. Random battles lead to action RPG combat with you controlling one character and AI taking control of the rest of your party. The story follows a swordsman named Crace who takes on a job from a little girl who's looking for some magical MacGuffin stones that are scattered around the land. It's not super original or compelling, but the characters you team up with are at least somewhat entertaining. In a hyper-tropey sort of way. It's one of those harem games where I guess the idea is that you can sort of imagine yourself as the main character and you find yourself surrounded by a bunch of women that are into you. Honestly, that sounds exhausting. But then again, I've been married for 20 years and the idea of diving back into the dating pool sounds horrendous. So I assume other people find it easier to get into the whole harem thing. I do enjoy the graphical style of the game. It's sort of reminiscent of PS1 RPGs with 2D characters on 3D backgrounds. I feel like that's kind of where this one peaks, to be honest. Let's go over the laundry list of complaints now, shall we? This is old school in the worst way, with random battles happening way too often. Not only are the battles super frequent, but every now and then the game seems to have a hard time loading the battle, so the transition is like 15 seconds. Now, just to be clear, it's not every time, or even most of the time, but it happens often enough that it will drive you insane. Once you get into a battle, you're faced with some of the most uninspired enemy designs I've ever seen. You know how Dragon Quest took a little blob of goo and turned it into a beloved mascot character? Anyone interested in picking up a Mimana Iyar cube? It's a cube. That's the enemy. Beyond the bland bad guys, your party AI is generally pretty dull. Firing spells at nothing, constantly singing? Seriously, the singing is the worst. Not just because why are you singing, but it clashes so horribly with the battle music and ugh. Look, I thought that this game actually had a bit of promise. I think as a first effort, it's not the worst game ever by any means. Future sequels, which they were obviously planning on, could presumably have smoothed over the rough edges and given us a really solid RPG experience. But those sequels never materialized, and all we're left with is unfulfilled potential and an uninspired game. Play something else. This game has the unique honor of being the most recent game to disappoint me. I think I mentioned this in my Switch RPG tier list video, but I picked this up because I saw a YouTuber preview it, and even though that particular YouTuber had some reservations about the game, I thought it looked pretty darn great, so I went ahead and bought it without any hesitation. I should have hesitated. Mato Anomalies is a sort of Persona-esque RPG that splits its time between real-world investigating and metaverse combat. Unlike the games that it seems to be modeling itself after, Mato Anomalies is lacking in all the polish and cool factor that made especially Persona 5 so freaking memorable. Part of it could have been due to the fact that I played the Switch version. I'm not positive, but at least there I had to put up with so much jankiness. Stuttering gameplay is something I can tolerate once in a great while if there's a lot happening on screen. I can't handle it happening almost constantly when nothing particularly amazing is happening on screen. Jogging from one location to another shouldn't feel like that much of a chore. I've put up with poorly optimized games for their stories before. That is, if the story is interesting to me. And I really thought this one would be. It's a sort of dark cyberpunk noir kind of deal where you control a detective in the real world trying to get to the bottom of some cyberpunk noir kind of mystery. It's like Blade Runner for weebs. That's totally something I would be into. Regardless though, this one just did not click with me. I feel like some necessary context was just missing. Context about these characters in this world. Don't get me wrong, I love a story that starts in the middle of things and doesn't spoon feed you exposition like a story-starved infant, but that's a super narrow line to walk. Too much and I hate the story for being too on the nose. Too little and I hate it for leaving me feeling completely lost and confused. I know it's not really like me, but at times I have been able to push through a confusing story if the gameplay is fun enough. That's not the case here. The turn-based combat is fine, but it's nothing special. The concept of sharing a health meter between all party members is interesting. It could be that later on in the game that mechanic becomes cool, but as far as I got, it didn't really do anything for me. All in all, I wish I had better things to say about this one. I was looking forward to it, but it just let me down in a major way. Uh-oh. My skin is tingling. That means some people are writing angry comments about how I suck for hating on Vagrant Story. Let me just quickly reiterate. This is not necessarily a list of games that suck and are bad. It's a list of games that disappointed me. To say that I'm disappointed by Vagrant Story would be an understatement. I desperately wish I could love this game. I've tried multiple times to get into it because so much about it I find so compelling, but I've been stopped each time by some stupid dragon. The first time I played Vagrant Story was back in the year 2000 when it first released. I was immediately taken in by the graphics and the music and the writing. Holy crap, the writing. I go back and forth in general on whether I think the faux Shakespeare thing is endearing in media in general, but I think it works so well here. Maybe that's because there's no spoken dialogue really, just comic book style text boxes, but the seriousness of the story is emphasized by the writing and it manages to be dark and heavy without being a burden to play. So aesthetically, I'm all over this one. Shouldn't that be enough for me? Well, if it was a simple matter of disliking the gameplay or something, then yeah, I would slog through it for the story and the aesthetics, 100%. The problem is that I literally cannot progress. Like I said, every time I've gotten up the nerve to try this game again, because, and I can't emphasize this enough, I really want to like it, well, this stupid Wyvern or whatever it is kills me. Just like, it's not even trying. It wastes me, like I'm nothing. It's humiliating. Ooh, I just felt another disturbance in the air. Now the keyboard bandits are typing about how I just need to get good. To that I can only say, fair enough. I am bad. I should strive to be good instead. And maybe I would if I found the gameplay itself enjoyable, but it's never grabbed me to the level that I've wanted to improve at it. I don't like micromanaging buffs and debuffs and worrying about what gem I have attached to which sword. That ain't me. I'm not giving up on Vagrant Story. I'm gonna give it one more try soon. And this time, I'll just straight up use a guide. All the way through, I will see this one through to the end. But the fact that I even have to do all that just to experience this game is a disappointment on its own. So while this is far from a bad game, I stand by this. I'm disappointed. I was primed for an epic sci-fi adventure. I mean, just look at this box art. Sure, there's not much happening, but that's a freaking awesome space station. And I'm guessing there are going to be robots. Robots will be involved. Look, I was a kid, and our rental store only got new RPGs every now and then. So I see something claiming to be another great RPG from Enix. I'm grabbing that bad boy as fast as I can before the other nerd in town gets his sweaty hands on it. The game that box contained is not what was advertised. That's for sure. Robotrek is the localized name for a Japanese game that was literally called slapstick, as in the type of humor. Moody space stations need not apply. The only thing that I can say is true from that deceptive cover is the robot part. Robots are involved. In fact, they're pretty much the focus of the game. Robotrek tells the story of some nameless kid with a famous inventor father who has to save the world from a group of hackers, called the Hackers. You do this by building robots to battle for you. In theory, I imagine some people would find this cool. You can control almost everything about your robot team, from their stats to their paint job. You can also build equipment for them, so the sky is really the limit. Or not the sky, then the 1.2 megabytes that this game came on. You can send out one robot at a time to battle, though you can swap them out mid-fight if you need to. Battles are the sort of active turn-based that so many JRPGs were in this era. When it's your turn, you can move around the field freely and attack enemies until your fuel runs out. At that point, you're a sitting duck until the gauge fills back up, so enemies can just wail on you. It's not very fun, is the thing. I'm in a better place now than I was back then to appreciate the goofy atmosphere and humor, I guess. But there isn't much of a compelling story here, and the gameplay isn't fun enough to make up for it. Somehow this disappointing experience came from Quintet, the team that gave us Illusion of Gaia, ActRaiser, Terranigma. It's so far outside the quality I'd come to expect, so I think you can see why I'd have been disappointed. For nostalgia's sake, I spent a bit too much money to pick up a physical copy of this one, but in general, I'd recommend you find something better elsewhere. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this list of disappointing games, and if any of my choices made you mad, well, I'm sorry. But either way, let me know down in the comments what game has disappointed you the most. Whether it's expectations that were too high or a budget that was too low, I'd love to hear all about it. Once again, if you would like the video as a sacrifice to the algorithm gods, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you'd consider subscribing, that would make my entire week. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.